What's up, YouTubers? Today I'm going to try to assess all of the knives that I've handled and judge the very best deployers of various types. So I'll tell you that all these knives that you see in front of you, none of them won anything. The Conigarius, for example, this is the greatest knife I've ever handled. But as a flipper, it's not the best flipper because it shines in the light switch, but it has a point and jimping and doesn't do so well, and especially the natural inclination for you to put your hand over there. Even as a light switch, if you get your hand off that lock bar, not the best. Of course, the 8020, this is the slimline version. This one, there's really not another knife to compare it to. It's its own. It's the first of its kind. So the Shark Lock, that would win, of course, in terms of a deployment type, if you will. As a flipper, the ZTO 308, marvelous. But again, it has a sharp point and doesn't do well. And so for the flipper category, I necessitated both a push button as well as a light switch type. I hope that it is useful. Don't take my selections as gospel, of course. It's just, again, what I consider to be the best deployers that I've ever handled and for the various types of knife. So I hope you do enjoy this, and stay tuned. So for the first category, we have the Paramilitary 3 or PM3 and the Spydico Sage 5. That is going to be for your Spydie hole deployment. I have many Spydicos, and these really came down to the finalists, principally because for the Sage 5, from deployment, your hand is basically right in usable position. You go with some of those smaller ones, the bugs, the dragonflies, even the PM2, you have to readjust your hand a little bit more than you do on these. On both the Sage 5 as well as the PM3, your hand is basically right in usable position. They're both equally ambidextrous in this particular case, so neither one really has an advantage, left or right hand side, as far as the deployment goes. But really the reason between these two finalists that the Paramilitary 3 wins is because of gloves. I did test out gloves in any of these, and that's definitely a use case scenario where I do, it does come into play. And rolling this one out, the Sage 5 has just a little bit smaller hole, and let me go ahead and demonstrate that. As you can see, oops, sorry, I have them in reverse order. There you go. So you can see that there's a little bit smaller hole on the Sage 5, and that's why with gloves, it's just not as easy to flick out. Again, having that additional purchase space is fantastic in the gloves. As far as retraction back, the compression lock isn't the greatest, but it's definitely just a little bit easier. Trying to flick either one out overly fast is sometimes a tough thing with gloves, but that's why the Spydico PM3 is the winner in the Spydie hole. In the category of flippers, our first entrance is the Elisha Isham designed McKenna, made by Spydie. The second one is the Justin Lundquist designed Kaiser Feist. And then the last one is the Brian Nadeau designed Mini Tempest by Sharp by Designs, his own company. We'll be honest on that one. The reason these made it is because every single one of them has the ability to deploy not only easy enough when you're trying to train somebody or just yourself on a front flipper. These would probably be 3 great starters. They're kind of tough to fail. I'd say probably the easiest to fail out of the outset is the Feist, simply because it does probably have the strongest detent of the 3 here. But and the Isham or the Isham design, I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Is it Isham or Isham? But the last really requirement is that you have the ability to utilize it both left-handed as a flipper, to varying degrees of success. I can do this one okay, but also that you can use your finger instead of having to just use your thumb, and that was definitely one of the requirements. So really, the toughest of those 3 for as far as the finger use deployment is the Feist. So that one kind of gets kicked out earliest in the game. And then the Sharp by Designs is just absolutely fluid. And this thing is also, when it comes to left-handed, it's just unbelievable. I have to use a lot more wrist with the Isham designed McKenna. So for the winner of this category, I'm definitely going to say that, yeah, it's kind of tough to compare something that's, in the $375 range versus this particular knife is, I think, $60 or something, maybe $80. So it's almost not fair, but you know what? I have to go with the best of the best, and for the front flippers, it's definitely going to be the Mini Tempest. In the category of top flipper, we have two entrants. We have the Mach 1 Atomeo design by Wingman EDC production, and the Pena X Series Trapper. The Trapper's made with many different blade patterns and the like. It doesn't like to sit too far forward. But these are both categorized as top flippers, as I did. And that's that principally you don't have a front bar that you're hitting that way, that you're literally grabbing onto something on the back of the tang, if you will. And both of these made it to the finals primarily because they could deploy multiple ways. So in terms of this one with the front, I'm having a tough time with that one, the Pena. And then the Mach 1, definitely no problems there. And then like I said, I have other top flippers, but the other ones were really, really difficult to go ahead and deploy with your finger, just kind of reaching back there. But both of these did meet the bill on that one. In the end, on this one was relatively easy. The Pena is more refined, Riot produced and that sort of thing. But with that comes an extremely strong detent. Plus it has this bolster lock here that it's very easy left-handed when you're trying to do that second deployment method to be putting pressure down on that bolster lock, in which case you'll never deploy it. It's quite challenging. So as far as left-handed, right-handed, really the Mach 1 by Wingman EDC is definitely what I consider the best top flipper out there. So boom. Okay, in the backflip category. By backflip, I essentially mean not a traditional flipper, but where you're essentially putting the pressure downward to deploy the knife, and it does remain flat there. So the first entrance we have is the Spyderco Smock, current Fidget King, the Everyman's EMP EDC Nimble. This is the smaller version 2, not the X1 or whatever, but that's actually tied with the Smock for the Fidget King in my collection at present. And then we have the Boker Plus Kansai LRF. This was actually one of the first back flippers I had, and it was just truly incredible. So these are the three entrants for the back flipper. I would say the Smock loses out just a little bit. Now, again, this is almost not fair because most people take out the secondary detent ball. I do not, because I actually prefer to have kind of that controlled redeployment back instead of the guillotine drop shot. But some of the beautifulness of this one, especially the left-handedness, actually on deployment it doesn't really matter entirely. So I will go ahead and wait to pass judgment on that one. In terms of this one for a downward pressure, the Nimble, the MPEDC Nimble, it's fantastic, and it does just have a little bit better nod. Again, I don't know because I leave the secondary detent ball in the Smock, so I'm going to go ahead and count it for as it's produced, though, which means that secondary detent ball goes in, and it's just not as fluid and great. In terms of what separates these two, they're both equally great left-handed in terms of deployment. Very easy to do left-handed. Neither one is really left or right-handed in terms of the clip side. You can't swap them over. I think on the Smock, I don't remember. I think with the original scales, you can actually go to left-hand tip-up carry. In the end, on this one, I think it comes down to, oh boy, this one is really close. And I didn't really have a winner decided on all of these. You know what? I hate to say it. Let me go ahead and do the glove test. Because when all things are equal and I'm looking for something, and the other thing is both of them leaves you right in the right proper position for use. So that one, you get a little bit of the material caught in there. The Nimble. Let me see how this one does. Oh, this one's even worse just because it's so tiny. Yeah, you know what? I think as an actual user, especially I think about that my little tiebreaker category of a glove, I think the Everyman's EMP Nimble wins the category for that reason alone. Is it's essentially about an equivalent in terms of it flies out of there, is extremely useful. But I think, yeah, it just wins based on the fact that this is a little bit better in gloves. So that's my back flipper champion. In the category of flipper, and there are a ton of great flippers out there, obviously, this was tough to really narrow down, but I did narrow it down to 3 in this particular case. Specifically, and I'll talk about what the categorization was. One is it did have to be able to push button as well as light switch essentially flawlessly and be intuitive in terms of like not running into too many issues with lock bar coverage with your hand. And yeah, that can still happen. But the first one I have entered in here is the Kaiser Ursa Minor. This is a Ray Laconico design. And yeah, this one, it's really, really tough to fail. We have a hinderer in there, yes. Most hinderers are pretty rough, but this particular one has no jimping on the back. And you're going to find that that's a commonality amongst these, is that with no jimping, it really doesn't hurt. So you can do the push as well as the light switch. So we're talking about the hinder half track, of course, there. And then the last entrance here, we have probably what I just assumed from the outset was going to win, and that's the ZT0562 tie. This particular one is the Castle Edition, aka Punisher. But yeah, this one's really tough to fail as well. Push button, light switch. So in the end on this one, I really don't necessarily know out of the gate. So I'm going to go ahead and see which one is easy enough to fail. You know, if you see, they're just all really, really tough to fail. Let's see if I go in a light switch. If I can, yeah, I can fail that one pretty low. Let's try the hinder half track. That one, this one, I'm fairly certain the D10 is so strong, you just can't fail it. So none of them in the push button are going to fail, but let's see if I can fail it at all. Not moving my wrist. Oh, yeah, almost. It still wouldn't fail, though. And then the 0562 tie, this one I'd be surprised as well. Yeah, this one, it doesn't matter. You can be going against gravity. You can go as slow as you want. The 0562 tie is, you know, you can see the Ursa Minor is very, very good. They're all very comfortable. Again, that's really what determines a perfect flipper in a sense, is you can actually push button or switch it. But I think in the end, the 0562 tie, it literally just is almost impossible to fail this particular knife on the flip action. You could try it upside down. You could try it against gravity. It's just not going to fail. So there's your winning flipper, ZT0562 tie. All right. In the category of out the side automatic, this was very easy to get down to a final 3. The first one is the Microtech LUDT. That's the large underwater demolition team. Very satisfying, very snappy. That one is definitely up there. In the lower budget category is the Boker Kalashnikov. This snaps really, really well. I've used this knife a ton, and it just keeps going. So the Boker Kalashnikov, and then the ProTech. The best one I have in terms of just overall for full size knife is the Les George designed Rockeye. This is the automatic version based on the custom. But yeah, this thing is insane as well. And so what I will say is I'm going to throw in an honorable mention here. It's almost not fair. The very fastest I have ever had, and it's just amazingly snapping. Having handled a lot of automatic knives, this one literally jumps out of your hand, and you got to be really conscientious. I think they use the same, if I had to guess, very, very close to the same spring as in the regular Rockeye. This is the ProTech Les George short-bladed Rockeye, or SBR. It literally, you push the button, and it's literally out. You just have to literally put this on slow-mo. Maybe I will even do some slow-mo shots. In fact, let me go ahead and do that. I'll just move these out of the way, and then I'll put them each on, I don't know, some amount of serious slow-mo just to see what they look like. Doesn't have that amazing snap. It actually has maybe more snap because it is such a light blade, and I think in that sense it's almost unfair. So as for a full-sized out the side automatic, in the end the Protect just snaps a little bit more, fulfilling. Also, just from the grip perspective, it actually has a little bit more chalky feel here. Their clip also, just is perfect for putting your fingers on. So in the end, for the out the side automatic, it's going to be the Protect Rockeye. Out the front door, right? This next one's not even close. In fact, I can order them quite easily. I love Microtech, Ultratech. However, the jimping on, or whatever you want to call this stepping texture for the deployment button, it is designed for gloves. If this were a glove only, this would be the winner because it's just perfect for that. But to the bare hands, even after building years of calluses, these is just too sensitive on the fingers. So that one I will put in third place. Second place is the Hogue Compound of the ones I have. They definitely made it a little bit better. It's kind of, I don't know if that's metal or G10 or something, but it is definitely less aggressive. Doesn't hurt quite as bad. It's just very difficult because it is at such a steep angle and there's not much of a stepping. It's a very steep stepping. That's why this one doesn't pass muster, as it wasn't going to beat the number one. And the number one is probably going to be no surprise at all, and that's the Guardian Tactical Recon. This thing is perfect. It's on bearings. It has proper stepping, comfortable jimping, cannot accidentally go off, still requires a great amount of force to go forward. So yeah, the Guardian Tactical Recon is literally a hand. It's this one's not even close for an out the front. That's your winner. And in the last category, the thumb studs. This was the most competitive by far that I have, just because thumb studs are my preferred deployments, so I happen to have a lot more thumb stud deploying knives. I'll go ahead and talk about what separated them while I talk about the two honorable mentions that didn't make it in. The first one is the Civivi Altus. This is the button lock one. One of the requirements is that it had to be front side easily deployable, as well as very simple to do with the middle finger Spydie flick on the back side. Again, the requirements were so difficult because you essentially had to not fail or be impossible to fail it. In terms of another one that was super satisfying, but it is easy enough to fail, and it's obvious why once you get to know the mechanics of a knife, and that's the Benchmade bug out once with the full tie, properly tuned. It is so ridiculously smooth, and so I mean I can definitely get it to fail, but it takes a lot more work to get it to fail than not. So in terms of the axis lock, the Benchmade bug out was right there. I could get it to fail. The final three, though, for the thumb studs, the first one is the Quiet Carry Waypoint. This one is literally, and this one's on bronze washers. I think this is probably one of the greatest tuned knives ever. To not have any blade play, and to just, it's very difficult. I'll hold my wrist. It takes a lot of work to cause a failure on this one if you go out very specifically with the middle finger flick. But if you kind of follow the channel that they say, you literally cannot fail that one. So the Quiet Carry Waypoint, the McNeese Customs knives 3.5 inch Mac 2. This thing is ridiculous. The next two are actually both on what do you call those things? The rolling balls. Bearings. Blah. So in any case, this one, when I did my review on this, I literally can't get this one to fail, no matter how I try. The detent is perfect, and it never falls out. I mean, it's easy. I can give this knife to anybody, and it's so dang smooth. That's definitely one of your entrances there. And then the last entrance is the Wee Knives Banter, designed by Ben Peterson. This one, again, trying to hold that wrist, you can get it to fail, but if you actually kind of commit to the direction that the scale leads you to, you can't. You literally, You can only fail it if you kind of go out in this direction. But just following it naturally, again, this one as well, I can give this to anybody who's never used thumb studs. This used to be the one that I would give people to say, hey, try that one out. In the end, because they are on the bearings, it's a little bit easier for your non-experienced person to deal with them. So the waypoint kind of loses out there. And at this point in time, it is literally just such a... You're splitting hairs at that point in time. And in the end, what causes the loss is because the McNeese is a frame lock, you're going to naturally have your thumb depressing the detect ball, and so you can't middle finger flick it on the back side. But the Wii Banter, you can, because it is a full liner lock. So if I were going to train somebody the very first time on a thumb stud knife, it's going to be the Wii Banter. There's your champion on that one.